If God has gone silent on you, don't scroll away, because what looks like heaven's silence is almost never heaven doing nothing. And there's a man in Scripture whose story proves it, a man God said nothing to for 13 years.
13 years? With no word from God at all, no sign, no answer, nothing to tell him he wasn't completely alone? How does a person even survive that?
13 years, his name was Joseph, and it started with a dream. As a young man, Joseph dreamed that one day his whole family would bow to him. He was 17, full of hope, sure God had spoken something big over his life. But his brothers hated him for it. So one day, out in the fields, they grabbed him, tore his coat, and threw him into a dry pit, and then sat down to eat a meal while he cried out from the bottom.
Wait, they threw their own brother into a pit and then just sat down and ate a meal while he was crying out from the bottom of it?
They did. And here's the first hidden detail most people miss. Scripture says the pit was empty, no water in it. In that region, an empty cistern in the dry season meant certain death by thirst or heat. Joseph wasn't just thrown away, he was left to die. But instead of dying, he was pulled out and sold to a passing caravan of traders headed for Egypt. Chained, walking away from everything he'd ever known into a country whose language he couldn't even speak.
And God said nothing this whole time? Not one word, not one sign? While he's being dragged in chains to a country he's never even seen? Nothing at all?
Not one word, no angel, no vision, no explanation. Joseph is sold into the house of an Egyptian official named Potiphar. And here's where it gets remarkable. Joseph doesn't sulk. He works, he serves, he gives his best to a master who owns him. And he rises. Potiphar puts him in charge of the entire household. For the first time in years, things look like they're turning. Joseph is trusted, respected, lifted up. And then it all collapses again.
Collapses, but he just clawed his way back up. He finally had trust, respect, a real position again. How does it all fall apart a second time?
He did, but Potiphar's wife wanted him, and Joseph refused her again and again. He would not betray his master or his God, so she lied. She accused him of a crime he never committed, and Joseph, the innocent man, was thrown into prison. Here's a second hidden detail. The Hebrew text says he was put in irons, his feet bound, his neck in a collar. This wasn't a holding cell, it was a dungeon for the condemned, rewarded with chains for doing the right thing.
So doing the right thing is what made it worse for him? He stayed faithful, he refused to sin, and prison is the reward he gets? How is that fair?
It isn't fair, and that's the part we have to sit with, because sometimes the silence of God gets louder right when you've done everything right. Joseph obeyed and landed in a dungeon, but watch what Scripture quietly repeats in every scene. One phrase keeps appearing. The Lord was with Joseph. In the pit, in slavery, in prison. God never speaks, but Scripture keeps whispering to us, the reader, that he was never gone. Joseph couldn't feel it, but God was there in every single scene. In that prison, Joseph meets two of Pharaoh's servants, a cupbearer and a baker. Both have strange dreams, and Joseph, still trusting the God who'd gone silent, interprets them. He tells the cupbearer, "In 3 days, you'll be restored."
And was he actually right about it? Did it happen exactly the way he told the cupbearer it would? Or was he just guessing to give the man some hope?
Exactly as he said. The cupbearer was freed and restored to Pharaoh's side, and Joseph asked him one thing. "When it goes well for you, remember me. Get me out of here." A door finally cracking open. Hope at last. And then the verse that breaks your heart. Yet the cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him.
He forgot him? After Joseph handed him hope and asked for one small thing in return, just to be remembered, the man walks free and forgets he ever existed?
Forgot him. And Joseph sat in that prison 2 more full years. 2 more years of silence after the one door of hope shut in his face. This is the lowest point. Innocent, forgotten, buried, and heaven still saying nothing. But here's the third hidden detail, and it changes everything. Those 2 years weren't wasted waiting. God was lining up a moment that couldn't have happened one day sooner, because Pharaoh himself was about to have a dream.
Pharaoh himself, the actual king of all Egypt, is having dreams that no one in the entire kingdom can figure out. And this is the moment God was waiting for?
The king himself. A dream no one in Egypt could interpret. 7 fat cows swallowed by 7 thin ones, 7 healthy heads of grain devoured by 7 withered ones. Pharaoh woke troubled and called every wise man in the land. None of them could explain it. And suddenly, the cupbearer remembers. There was a man in prison, he says, who interpreted my dream and it came true. In a single hour, everything turns. Joseph is rushed from the dungeon, shaved, given clean clothes, and brought before the king. Think about the timing. If the cupbearer had remembered 2 years earlier, Joseph would have been freed, but Pharaoh's dream hadn't happened yet. He'd have been released into nothing. God's silence wasn't delay, it was precision.
So the forgetting wasn't a cruel accident at all. It was actually protecting the timing. If he'd been remembered sooner, the whole thing would have fallen apart.
The forgetting was part of the plan. Joseph stands before Pharaoh and says something staggering for a man who'd suffered 13 years. I cannot interpret it, but God will. Still crediting the God who'd been silent his whole ordeal. Then he explains the dream. 7 years of plenty are coming, he says, then 7 years of famine that will devastate the land. Store grain in the good years, and Egypt will survive the bad. Pharaoh is stunned. He looks at this former prisoner and says, "Can we find anyone like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" And in one moment, Joseph goes from the dungeon to the palace. Pharaoh makes him second in command over all of Egypt. A signet ring on his hand, robes on his back, ruler of everything but the throne itself. The dream from 13 years ago begins to come true.
From a forgotten prison cell to running the entire country in a single day, after 13 years of nothing, it all turns in one afternoon.
In one day, but the story isn't finished. The famine comes exactly as he said. And who shows up in Egypt, starving, begging for grain? His brothers. The same men who threw him in the pit and ate lunch while he screamed. They bow before him, not knowing it's Joseph. And here's the fourth hidden detail, the meaning of it all. Joseph could have destroyed them. He had the power. Instead, he weeps. He reveals himself. And he says the words that unlock the whole story. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, to save many lives.
So every part of it, the pit, the slavery, the prison, all those silent years, was quietly moving towards something the whole time, and he just couldn't see it?
All of it. The silence was never God missing. It was God working underground where Joseph couldn't see, moving a slave into a palace to save an entire nation from famine, including the very family that betrayed him. Not 1 year of it was wasted. So when heaven goes quiet on you, remember Joseph. The silence isn't rejection. It's the sound of God working where you can't see yet, arranging a timing so precise that one day early would have ruined it. Your pit is not your ending. It's the root of your rising. The same God who was with Joseph in the pit, in the chains, in the forgotten prison, is with you right now in your silence. He has not forgotten you. He is simply not finished. Whatever silence you're in, it is not the end of your story. It's the root of it. Rest in His peace.
architectus